Hello, everyone. As well as the Cowrie College of Computer Sciences at Northeastern University. So we started with an understanding, I think shared by many at this conference, that there is a growing body of research demonstrating how social biases are embedded in natural language processing technologies. But are the interventions and insights from this research being adopted by the field at large? And if so, to what degree? To answer this question, we developed a codebook based on the Principles of Data Feminism, which is an influential book by Lauren Klein and Catherine D'Ignazio, based on the core understanding that feminism offers an analytical framework to connect individual experiences of inequality with structures of power. So, for example, how to trace bias into systems of NLP. So we looked at these principles and adapted them to the needs and formats of NLP research papers. We used 5 of the principles and developed a 5-point scale for 5 questions, and each has an example. We also developed this in the context of Arabic. So why Arabic and why a non-English language at all? So the first reason to do this was really rooted in transnational and intersectional feminist methodology, specifically in an intention to decenter English as the implied universal. And really we wanted to attend to a marginalized group or a low resource language. There are also many interesting linguistic features about Arabic itself. So there's a formal and informal version. There's the use of diacritics, high orthographic variation, and no capitalization. Arabic also has a really interesting cultural context, including many dialects that come from distinct geographic, national, and cultural contexts. And then we also have author familiarity, as 2 of our senior authors are part of the Arabic network of Arabic women in AI and are of Arabic descent, so their knowledge of the Arabic dialects and their cultural knowledge informs the project. To summarize, we wrote the Data Feminist Codebook in English with examples attending to the Arabic language and cultures. We applied the codebook to 2 samples of research papers, one in English and one on Arabic data sets. We then scored those, and we also create all research, a point of clarification is that all of the research papers themselves are written in English. That makes our contributions as follows: the codebook itself, which is available in full in our paper, the findings from both of our scored samples, which I'll talk about in a minute, and then a prototype tool that we developed in response to our findings. For our data set, we took the ACL anthology papers from the last 10 years. We ran BERT topic model to cluster them into categories, and we maximized coherence, so we optimized for maximum coherence. That gave us 9 topics in Arabic and 22 in English. You'll see these summarized on the following slides. And then we chose 15, we randomly sampled 15 papers from each topic to score. Our first question relates to social context. So did the paper provide detail about cultural, historical, or geographic context? The average for this question was 1.68. Notably for this question, Arabic paper scored 7.2% higher than English. This was also the only criteria in which there was a significant difference between English and Arabic. We think this was because they often took the time to describe Arabic as a language. If it was a particular dialect, they described what country it was from and the formality. In terms of topic variation, stance detection and temporal expression had slightly higher on average. Parsing, LLM, and intent were slightly lower on average. Our second question relates to data source, asking if the paper critically discusses the website or data repository the data are derived from. So, for example, if it was Wikipedia, did the paper assume that the website was sort of a perfect representation of language, that it was completely neutral, or did it have an understanding, at least in the English subset, that it's written predominantly by people in the West, it often is written more by men than by women, and that it additionally sort of reflects higher levels of education. Most topics had low medians in this criterion with some high scoring outliers, and this is the general trend across all of our criteria. The third question relates to labeled features. So this could be features that come with the data, for example, star reviews or annotated labeled data like sarcastic, non-sarcastic. We ask if the paper considers those labels critically or takes them again as a sort of neutral and universal truth. Unlike other criteria, not every paper had a labeled variable, so not every paper was scored for this principle. Here again, we had low medians across topics with some outliers. The biomedical and simplification and speech topics had slightly elevated scores, but these were not significant. LLM, transformer, stance detection, parsing, and summarization all had lower scores, but again, these were not significant. The fourth criteria we looked at was if the paper acknowledges bias, so citing prior literature about bias in their subject matter, or generally recognizing systems of oppression such as structural racism, sexism, homophobia, and so on. We noticed that scores were distinctly lower than the first three criteria and had smaller numbers of outliers. Hate speech was the notable exception to this. The same thing was true for challenging power. As with the previous criterion, we found that results were distinctly lower. But again, hate speech had a significant rise. So the implication here, one clarification, is that not every paper should necessarily challenge power, but it's very important for us to track how many do, and if they're clustered together in one specific topic or spread out across many different aspects of research. We also looked at the presence of ethics and limit statements, so a relatively low portion had ethics and limit statements. When they were present, they did have a small magnitude difference, but only for acknowledging bias and challenging power were these results significant. For us, this indicated that ethics and limits did not move the needle. So this led us to consider, right? If ethics statements alone aren't enough, what can we do? Instead of asking authors to come up with areas of bias, what if we suggested those sources of bias instead? That led us to create a prototype where we implemented this paradigm. It functions like a form that dynamically adapts to user input, so an author can input a data source and take Reddit, for example, and the prototype will automatically suggest areas of previously demonstrated bias based on published research. Here, one of those aspects would be a gender imbalance of Reddit being 67% male. It can also populate information based on dialect. Again, our research was tailored to the specific context of Arabic. So in this case, if you input Modern Standard Arabic as your dialect, it will automatically suggest a formal context written in legal, educational, and academic conversation settings. The last aspect I want to highlight here is that it also prompts authors to include some sort of basic data, as we recognize that even the sort of basic information of when was the data collected was missing from a large majority of papers. So this also offers a standardized format for that sort of thing. I encourage you to follow the QR codes on screen to either check out our prototype or our GitHub. And I believe I should have some time now for questions.